You can use the chat functionality in the WebEx meeting if you have any questions. Feel free to send those chats to my attention, but also on the line are Annette Thompson and Terry Carter. Those two are my colleagues over in Marketing and Creative Services. You can address any questions that you have directly to them so that they can answer those for you. And as I'm going through the agenda, just in case I don't see it, perhaps I'm unable to answer it for whatever the case might be, either one of them, again, Annette Thompson and Terry, can answer any questions that you might have, or at the very least, we can take your question and do some additional research if necessary. So the first thing that I wanted to kind of explain about today's session and what we're hoping to impart on you all today is with web accessibility at the university. Digital accessibility in general, and in particular at the university, it is evolving. It's been in progress as far as the things that we've been doing behind the scenes since before I came on board back in 2012. So, a number of years at this point. It does have a renewed higher priority behind it, as some of you may know, due to a complaint that was lodged a couple of years ago about the accessibility of some of GW's websites. So we've been putting a higher priority on it as a result of that complaint, and there are some things that we are required to do. And one of those things is to provide you guys as much training and resources as we can to help you put out web content that is accessible for your users. So you will be seeing more and more sessions coming from our team that do focus on web accessibility as well as other communication channels. I believe many of you are on the GW Digital Slack board, which does have several channels that are devoted entirely just to web accessibility. So you will be seeing more training sessions and more resources and ways to contact us and communicate with all of the web content managers throughout the university when it comes to web accessibility. So the training sessions that we're putting out, they're going to range from, beginning level, sort of somebody with a beginning level experience working in any one of our services or maybe a third-party service, intermediate, and advanced. Today's session is going to be kind of a beginner level session when it's talking about PDFs. We're not going to be opening up Adobe and creating a really complex document. We're going to really be focusing on that sort of day-to-day workflow that many of us have where we create a document in Word, but we export it as a PDF, making sure that we're using Microsoft, the features within Microsoft to make that document accessible once it is provided to our end users who might not be able to just look at it for themselves. So that brings us to the second thing that we're going to be focusing on today, which is using a screen reader. I do work on a Mac computer, so I'm going to be using the native software for accessibility on the Mac. It's called Mac VoiceOver. If you're working on a Windows computer, the default program on Windows, I believe, is called Narrator. So that's the equivalent of the Mac VoiceOver software that I will be using today to demonstrate to you what it sounds like for somebody when a PDF document is being read aloud to them. So what you should be seeing right now is a pretty simple document with some text about the online strategy team. This text, I actually just pulled it from our About page on our current website. And I made a few tweaks to put in some additional functionality, such as these links and then the image. But the first thing I want to do, so let's talk about when you've got a document like this in front of you and you want to do some formatting. A lot of us will say, okay, well, I want this to be my title, so I'm going to center it, make it bold, make it really big, let's say 18, and then we'll say, okay, that looks really good as far as a title goes. But all of those formatting things I just did, they are not going to be picked up by a screen reader as far as being accessible. And what I mean by that is, as some of you may know from working in your Drupal site or a WordPress site, you have the ability to put subhead styles on text as necessary. You have those same features in Microsoft Word. So I'm going to click undo until we get back to our original state. And instead of using these sort of paragraph formatting options that are really right in our face, I'm actually going to go over here to this slider here. Some of you may see this and use this, and this could be familiar territory for you, and some of you may not. Some of you may stick primarily just to these options here. But the styles that you see here, these are pre-formatted paragraph styles that also apply that sort of code for the subhead styles as well. So if you click on just this little drop-down arrow that you see, if you hover over this section, it'll open a flyout menu so that you can see what they are. But what I actually prefer to do is just click right here, this last icon in the set where it says the Styles pane, and that opens up this sidebar here where you can see everything. So I'm not sure how big this screen is for you all. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so that hopefully it's easier to read. Not that. There we go. So what all of these are just the various format options that you have for your text within your image. And you can see it's actually pretty robust. You have everything from just your normal paragraph spacing, your title attribute, all of your subheads, options for quotes, so on and so forth. I'm going to stick to the basics today just with some subheads and titling my page here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. If I wanted to still then go ahead and do some minor formatting as far as alignment and things along those lines, that's perfectly fine. But the important thing is here that I wrapped this text in the title attribute. And if I don't like the visual style of it, that's fine. You can just open up this drop down, click on Modify Style, and a Modify Style window will come up. This is just sort of the basic properties, but you can go over here to this Format drop down in the lower left corner and really get into the nitty gritty on updating the styles for each one of these attributes. And once you change a style through that method, it will apply every time you then click on one of these options. So that's just something to be aware of. But again, the important thing here is that by clicking on this title attribute here, I have now in the backend program code for Microsoft Word wrapped this text in the title attribute. So then now if I go down through the rest of this page, what I can see here is I've got a couple of subheads that I put in there, but there are no styles on them. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to highlight who we are, and I'm going to use heading 2, just because I'm used to heading 1 being a page title in website design. So I'm going to go ahead and use heading 2. I'm going to do the same thing for what we do. And then when I get down here for Works With Us, I'm going to make that a heading 3 because I feel like that one is just a little bit less prominent than these two. And then again, if I don't like the styles like exactly as they come out, I can go over here, click to modify the style. So maybe I want some additional space before and after that, that headline text. So I'll just add that there. And you can see that that now got applied to both of my subhead 2s, my heading 2s on the page because they both share that style. And I can, again, do the same thing here for the H3. I don't have to highlight it. I'm just doing that out of web content management habit. And again, I'm going to add a little extra space there. So now my text has some nice breathing room in there. And I'm looking at my document, and maybe I'm thinking, you know what? This looks really good. I'm going to go ahead and export this. I put my title attributes in there. I've got my subhead styles in there. This looks good. This I should be done, right? Well, before you do that, something that Microsoft offers, which I have to be honest, I don't know how long this feature has been around. If you, so now that they've got this tab interface at the top, if you click on the Review tab where you get like your word count and everything, they've got two pretty nifty things here. The first one is this Read Aloud option, which very much acts like a screen reader. With some slight differences. I do recommend using this because you'll be able to hear the cadence of somebody reading the words aloud to you that you put on the page, and that might, at the very least, help you to tweak and wordsmith some of your writing. It's not really a perfect one-to-one for a screen reader as far as picking up things like alt text and links within your document, at least not in my own testing. So I wouldn't rely on this as the only way to test for screen reader readability, but it's definitely a good place to start. And then immediately next to that is this option to check accessibility. And this option I've actually seen in other Microsoft products as well. I saw it in Microsoft Excel, for example. I wouldn't be surprised if it was in PowerPoint as well, but it's definitely here in our Microsoft Word document that we are using. So I'm going to go ahead and click here where it says check accessibility. And you can see that we get this window over here that now tells me some of the issues that it found with the text and the images that are in my document. So the first thing that it's saying is that I'm missing alternative text on my 2 images in my document. And then here it's saying the image or the object is not in line. So let's start first with the alt text. That's some pretty low-hanging fruit. So I'm going to go to the first one here, which is the logo and the header. Just going to double click on that. And then you have a couple different ways that you can access the alt text on your images. The first one being to highlight the image and then go to the picture format option. And there should be, where is it? There it is. This icon right here to display the alt text on the image. So once you click that, it'll open up this pane over here where you can then put in a description of what's in your image. Another faster way to get to that, though, is just to right-click on your image and then click where it says Edit Alt Text, and then it opens up the same window over here. So all you need to do in the case of an image where, like a logo like this where there's text, is you just need to provide what that text is. So I'm just going to say GW Marketing. I'm going to spell it right. GW Marketing and Creative. Services. So that's all I need to do here because that's literally what's going on in this graphic. It's just got the GW monogram in there and then the name of my department, Marketing and Creative Services. If there was something visual in there, I would need to describe what that visual is. So that will bring us down to our next image down here. So now that I've done that, let's close the header. And now if we actually go back to our review tab and we check accessibility again, and the tab is actually still open over here, we can see that picture 1 is no longer in there as being an issue for accessibility. It's just picture 2. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click and do Edit Alt Text again. And for this one, since it's visual, what I need to do is describe for the end user what that visual is, because I have to assume that somebody, for whatever reason, cannot see what this image is. And so they need to be given the context of what this image is. So I'm going to say an illustrated computer monitor with icons of chat bubbles, person, oh man, I can never spell silhouette. Silhouette, piece of paper, and a camera. So now, for somebody who might be hearing the alt text as opposed to being able to visually see this graphic, this is what they're going to hear instead. It's describing to them what's going on in this graphic. What you don't want to do is use something non-descriptive here. You don't want to say GW or just graphic or logo or something like that, because that tells me nothing if I can't see the image. You want to be descriptive for what's going on, and you can see here it says, 1 to 2 sentences recommended, because really you're just trying to give them context. You're not, you don't need to go at length about what that graphic is. You'll notice down here there is a checkbox that says Mark as Decorative. This option is there because accessibility requirements and standards recognize that not all images that you put up are crucial content information. Sometimes you're just putting something up because it's pretty. And this one really could fall into that category. There's really nothing about this graphic that's providing crucial information to my end users, but I'm going to leave it unchecked for now. But I'll show you what would happen if I did check that. Is basically, and you can, I don't know how well you can see it. I don't think that this is actually accessible for color contrast, but basically what will happen is that as a screen reader is reading through this document, it will come to this image, see that it's been marked as decorative, and it will just skip over it because it knows that it's not crucial information. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave it unchecked so that the screen reader will see it and will read it to us. And this is a feature that you'll see in more and more programs as accessibility content editor tools are rolled out across the digital realm. You'll start to see for those image fields required alternate text fields, as well as the ability to say this is a decorative image or not. So going back to our accessibility checker, now we see that the alt text is no longer being flagged as an issue on this document. However, it is saying that there's still an issue with picture number 2 with its image alignment. So down here at the bottom where it's saying why fix, it's saying if the image or object is not in line, meaning not in line with the text. You can see I've got it left aligned and I've got my text wrapping around it. So it's saying if the image or object is not in line, it may be difficult for screen reader users to interact with the object, and it may be difficult to know where the object is relative to the text. So basically what that means is, and I'm going to ignore it for my document, but what that means is if this graphic or this photo had somehow crucial information in it and it was also related to the text that was preceding it or following it, the fact that it's not in line with the text will make it difficult for a screen reader to read it in the proper order. So because my item here is decorative, I'm not really worried about a screen reader reading it immediately after this paragraph or this paragraph because it's not really in context for anything that's on this page. However, if this was maybe a chart that was, explaining something that had to do with the paragraph above it or below it, I would want to make sure that that graphic was in line with the text so that it would be read in the proper order and that the user using a screen reader would still get the context of here's some text, here's an image related to that text, here's some more text, so on and so forth. So when you are deciding whether or not to fix the alignment of your image, keep that in mind. What they want to make sure is if your graphic needs to be read in context with the text around it, then you need to make sure that that image or that graphic is in line with the text. And with that, all you need to do that is just go to the picture format options and either with the wrap text option or the position option, just choose that first one and then it's going to just shoot it over there in line with the rest of your text, however it needs to be formatted. But again, mine's decorative, so it's not really a big deal that it's not in line with the text, so I'm going to go ahead knowing that and move forward with my document. So now I've got my title, my text on the page, my subhead, my alt text. I think it looks pretty good. I've got no other accessibility errors that I really need to worry about here. So I'm going to go ahead and save this document out. So we're going to go to File, Save As, and we will do, yep, that's good. So file format, we're going to do an export format as a PDF. And then now that that's open, I'm going to open that document. And I know I need to share my my screen with you all, so I'll do that in just a moment. Oof. Okay, let's share. Here we go. All right, so I have the document open now, and I actually do not have it open in Adobe. I'm using the Preview program on my Mac. The reason why I'm doing that is because, again, as I mentioned before, the ultimate goal with today's session is to give you guys a demonstration of what your end user will hear when this document is being read aloud, and I'm using Mac VoiceOver to do that. Unfortunately, Adobe Acrobat and Mac VoiceOver do not really like each other that much. I tried as hard as I could to sort of troubleshoot all of the little kinky issues that I was having, but it wasn't giving a very effective demonstration for you all. So I'm using Preview for that reason instead. And that's something to keep in mind. You won't necessarily be able to control for all of the factors. You don't control the software that your end user is going to use, what their specific configurations on their given device are. So the best thing that you can do is just make sure that the source material that you put out there is as accessible as you can possibly make it. Your end users, especially those who have to use these devices, I'm sure they are used to these frustrations, unfortunately, like they're aware of the shortcomings of Mac VoiceOver and Adobe Acrobat and, Drupal and all of these various systems that they'll have to interface with. So they'll be able to, on their end, potentially make some accommodations to still be able to do what they need to do. But it all starts with the content that you put out. So what you're putting in your documents, what you're putting on your website. So you have to control what you can control. So what I could control here is which program I chose to actually open the document in. and the program that I use on my computer to serve as the VoiceOver software, which again is Mac VoiceOver. So I'm going to open that program up now, and I am going to let you guys hear what this document sounds like. So just give me one moment.
Welcome to VoiceOver. VoiceOver speaks descriptions of items on the screen and can be used to control the computer using only your keyboard. If you already know how to use VoiceOver, press the V key now. If you want to learn how to
use VoiceOver?
VoiceOver on preview. About online strategy.pdf. One page. Window. Document. Group has keyboard focus. You are currently on a group. To interact with items in this group, press Control, Option, Shift, down arrow. In Document, Group. Page 1. You are currently on a page, inside of a group. To exit this group, press Control, Option, Shift, up arrow.
And now I'm actually going to use the shortcut command, which is Control Option A, to just have the whole document read aloud to us. I've listened to this multiple times, so I can tell you right now, it's not going to be perfect. Again, this goes back to being some programs not working well with each other. And this is, you know, again, your end users will pick the program that works best for them. With Mac VoiceOver, it reads the document better in the preview program, but it's not a perfect sort of thing that you'll hear it for yourself here in just a moment. So here we go.
Page 1. About online strategy. Online strategy is the George Washington University source for user-friendly websites and online experiences. Our goal is to create a unified and accessible web presence that is easy to manage, evolving with the ever-changing digital world, and reflects the university's visual identity guidelines. Heading Level 1. Who we are. We're part of GW. Link. Marketing and Creative Services. Department within the Division of External Relations. Working closely with our colleagues in project management, graphic design, video, and photography services. What we do. We also work in partnership with the mobile and web services team within Link. GW. Information Technology. To manage and enhance GW's online functionality, particularly through Link. GW Drupal. GW Central Content Management System, CMS. And we support several other digital services available to the GW community, including Link. GW Blog. For self-serve WordPress websites. Link. Site Improve. For website quality assurance monitoring. Link. Emma. For mass email communications. Link. University Calendar. And the university's main social media channels. Work with us. We'd love to work with you on your next digital project. Get started by learning about Link. All of our services, and Link. The people who provide them. Space. An illustrated computer monitor with icons of chat bubbles, a person silhouette, a piece of paper and a camera image. Heading Level 1. What we do. VoiceOver off.
Okay. So I hope everybody was able to hear that. I cut it off a little bit early just because, as I was mentioning before the demonstration, as the screen reader goes along, particularly with Mac VoiceOver using preview to actually view the PDF, it tends to it starts to go, after it's read the whole document, it then goes back in and reads each individual element. And so I didn't want you guys to have to listen to the whole document again, but I think that gives you a good idea for what your end users will hear using a screen reader. So something that you may have picked up on is before it got, as it got to a link, before it would just read the text, it would actually say the word link. That's to allow your end user to know this is a clickable item. This is something I can do something with. And they can then determine, do I want to click on that link or not, basically. Something that we always advise our Drupal users and our WordPress users to do whenever they're putting web content on is to make the links contextual. And that just means using the plain language description of what's behind the click. So, the department that you're linking to, the services that you offer, the action that your user can take. How can you describe that in plain language and then make that plain language the link? what many content managers actually prefer to do, and I'll put an example up here for you, is to say something along the lines of, for more information, click here, and then put that as your link. So I'll actually put that up here for you now. So we'll say, for more information about GW, click here. And then we'll go ahead and add a link here. And then the other thing that we see very often is, for more information about GW, click here. So now that I've got my two examples in there, I'm going to go ahead. Actually, let me go through the actual process of making this a link. It will usually save it out, but just in case, I want you guys to see what happens. So we're going to save this out as a PDF document. And something that I did not talk about previously when I went to the option of saving the document are these two options that you have here. You have the option for best for electronic distribution and accessibility, and then you also have the option best for printing. You want to make sure that you're using that option best for electronic distribution and accessibility. That's the one that's really going to give you the best bang for your buck versus printing. The idea, obviously, for a print document, things along the lines of the DPI of your graphics will be taken into account. Like it's going to do some subtle behind-the-scenes things to make sure you have the best print document possible, versus this option here where it says best for electronic distribution and accessibility. It doesn't need to worry about the same sorts of issues. It's an entirely different medium, but now it starts thinking about digital accessibility. It starts thinking about color contrast on the screen, things along those lines. So you want to make sure that if this is a document that you're planning to distribute digitally, electronically, you need to make sure that the option here that says best for electronic distribution and accessibility is what's checked. So I'm going to go ahead and click export again. And I'm going to say replace my previous document. And if we're lucky, preview will actually have, yep, haha, it changed automatically. So we're going to go ahead and open up Mac VoiceOver again, and I'm just going to let it read through this new portion up here once it starts going through the screen, and then I'll stop it after that, just because I want you all to hear the difference between a contextual link and an inaccessible link. So hold on just one moment.
Welcome to VoiceOver. VoiceOver speaks descriptions of items on the screen and can...
VoiceOver on preview, in document, group. Page 1. You are currently on page 1, about online strategy. Online strategy is the George Washington University source for user-friendly websites and online experiences. Our goal is to create a unified and accessible web presence that is easy to manage, evolving with the ever-changing digital world, and reflects the university's visual identity guidelines. For more information about GW, link, click here. For more information about GW, click here. Link, www.gwu.edu. Heading left, VoiceOver off.
Okay. So you can kind of get an idea of how these links are just a little bit less accessible than the other links that you see represented here on the page. And to really get the full effect of this, and what I should have had you guys do, is to close your eyes and actually listen as this document is being read aloud, and literally lose the ability to see it for yourself. So if you then heard link, click here, you have no idea what's behind that click. If you heard link, click here, and then you heard a website address spelled out aloud to you, if it was short, like this one that we have here is, okay, yeah, you might get what it is, but start thinking about some of the domain URLs that you all manage and how long they are with characters. It just so happens with Mac VoiceOver, it reads it aloud letter by letter, but some of the screen reader programs will actually try and read that as a word. I've heard, for instance, I use an extension in my Chrome browser called Chromebox that can also serve as a screen reader, and it actually tries to read spelled out domains like this as if they were words. So it says something like GUI when it sees the gwu.edu domain, because it doesn't recognize that it's not a word, that they're actually just, like letters on the page. So those are the things that you have to keep in mind when you're creating your PDF documents that have links on them, as well as your website pages that have links on them, the way that the screen reader devices will also see these links. So again, going back into Microsoft Word, what it really just comes down to is making sure that you're taking advantage of the functionality that Microsoft is actively putting into their software to make it easier for you to make your content accessible. Again, today we're looking at it from just a pretty standard, simple point of view. In future sessions, we'll take a look at some more advanced features. We're hoping to offer a training also specifically in Adobe. In lieu of that, we do have some links to training resources that are available that I will send to everybody. But I wanted to open it up now for any questions that anybody might have, anything I didn't go over, anything I went over too fast, or if something happened in the progress of the session where you have a question about it. Feel free to type it into the chat, take yourself off of mute, and just ask it over the line. The floor is open. Don't see any questions. I do see something about the difference between save as PDF and print to PDF. They are different for sure. I don't know the specific technical nuances behind it, but whenever you're exporting your document to be a PDF document, any Microsoft Word document, even an Excel document, so on and so forth, you definitely want to make sure that the workflow that you're using is file, save as, and then export to PDF, as you saw me doing previously. Another option that some of you may have seen is to go to File and then Print. And then from here, there is an option down at the bottom to save as PDF or to print as PDF. They're not quite the same thing, so you just want to be careful not to do that if it's at all possible for you, just because the same sort of, again, behind the scenes code that makes your document accessible doesn't happen when you go through that print functionality as when you go through the save functionality. So keep that in mind whenever you're getting ready to actually export your document from Word. Something that is being mentioned to me. So one thing that was gone over today in another webinar I attended is that it's not good to print a PDF because it makes the PDF an image. Oh, well, thank you very much, Terry. So that's actually the nuance. The difference between saving your document as a PDF versus printing the PDF is that it's saving the print to PDF functionality, that print to PDF workflow. That is saving this document as an image. And the problem with that is when it comes to images on the web, we're talking about digital here, you have to make sure that a screen reader can absorb whatever it is in that image. And so in the case of this document, your entire document is technically the image. You have to find some way to get all of that information into an accessible format for your users. And typically with images, that's an alt field, which is not really going to work in this case. So that's why you want to take care of that. Let's see, can we talk about fillable form PDFs at all and your requirements different from regular PDFs? And for more complex charts as images, does the alt text need to include every word in the chart? Because we sometimes have crazy complex chart that would be nice to summarize. So we're not going to talk about fillable forms today. I'll definitely send some links that will specifically go over Adobe Acrobat and making those accessible PDFs. And I hope they'll also talk somewhat on using the fillable form options in Microsoft Word, because I do know you can create forms in Microsoft Word and export them as fillable PDFs, but today we're keeping things pretty simple. When it comes to forms, though, and making sure that they're accessible, I can tell you, and Annette and Terry, feel free to chime in as well, but I can tell you some of the things that you need to keep in mind is with the labels for your fields, just making sure that those are clearly marked on your document. And as this is less for screen reader, more for mobility accessibility issues, making sure that your form fields are in a logical order so that if somebody is tabbing through it with a keyboard, if they cannot use a mouse, that it's going in that logical order. but that will also play into the readability on the screen. If you're adding your form fields in sort of a nonsensical order, your screen reader might actually get tripped up with that and not know, like if you put the first name and last name field in first, but then you put, you know, a text box field, but then you go back and you ask for an email address, that might cause some issues. So you want to pay attention in those cases to the hierarchy of your fields and that things are being put in contextually. When it comes to complex images, this is definitely something that even we on our team struggle with. It comes down to making sure you're giving your end users context of what's in the graphic. I don't know that I've ever seen a perfectly alt-texted complex chart. You do want to stay away from saying something along the lines of just chart demonstrating whatever, maybe, and again, Annette and Terry, please feel free to jump in, but maybe putting something along the lines of a chart demonstrating whatever data point and then showing something as the highest and or something as the lowest. Maybe not every single data point within the chart, but maybe just one of the two extremes, the highest or the lowest, if that makes any sense. But what you need to be thinking about as you're trying to come up with that alt text is, okay, if I couldn't see this chart right now, if I couldn't see this graphic, what's the information that I need to take away from it? And put that as your alt text. Does that help?
Natasha, this is Annette jumping in to say, I think you did a great job summarizing that. And depending on, you know, what the chart is depicting, could any of that be brought out into plain text versus being embedded in a graphic? I guess that would be a second thing to think through.
Thank you. Are there any, let me see if there are any other questions that I maybe missed. Okay, it looks like that's it. So again, I did record today's session. As soon as the video is available to me, I will send that over to everybody in a follow-up email along with some additional training resources available at the university. In the meantime, if you do have any questions about the accessibility of your website or other things that you can be doing, feel free to reach out to our team. We're available weekly at office hours, except for next week because it's a holiday, but weekly on Thursdays. Are we in Gelman this semester, Annette, or is it Hall of Government?
Yep, Gelman B01 Computer Lab. You go down to it says lower level in the elevators.
Okay, yeah, in B01, that's right. So that's every Thursday from 10 till noon, and then we offer daily virtual office hours via WebEx from 11 till noon. They do require registration, and you can find the link to that on our website, onlinestrategy.gw.edu. And then you can also email us, onlinestrategy@gw.edu, and we're happy to help you that way as well. So thank you all very much for joining us today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.